Welcome to the Risk Wheelhouse, the podcast where we navigate the ever-changing seas of risk management and technology. Join your hosts, Ori Wellington and Sam Jones, as they steer you through the latest trends, insights, and strategies shaping the future of integrated risk management. Ready to chart a course towards success? Hop aboard and let's set sail into today's deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So imagine you're steering the ship at an organization, right? You're pushing the boundaries with AI, innovating like crazy, but then suddenly you're staring at this maze of new regulation.
Yeah, it's a real challenge.
It really feels like every single week there's some amazing new AI breakthrough, but all that excitement, it brings this really urgent need for guardrails,
Absolutely. How do we manage all this power responsibly? That's the core question.
Exactly. And today, that's what we're diving deep into. The EU AI Act, and specifically its General Purpose AI Code of Practice, or GPAI code for short.
Mm-hmm. The EU's really laid down a significant marker here, and yeah, it's definitely making waves already.
It truly is. And look, this isn't just about us reading some dry legal text.
No, not at all.
It's about unpacking what this code actually means for you listening, whether you're, a developer actually building these things or a business leader deploying AI or maybe an investor scouting the next big opportunity.
The implications really do stretch far and wide.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to take all the complex details of this EU AI Code of Practice based on some solid expert analysis we've looked at and just boil it down.
Get to the core insights.
Right. Give you the shortcut to being properly informed. We'll highlight some surprising bits, the really crucial operational stuff you need to know, but without hopefully getting everyone bogged down in jargon.
Makes sense.
So if you're building, deploying, investing in, or honestly even just curious about AI, understanding these new rules isn't just ticking a compliance box. It's really about having strategic foresight in this whole AI landscape.
Couldn't agree more. Shall we start laying the groundwork?
Let's do it. So the code, it sits within the bigger EU AI Act.
Right.
Where do we start with that?
Okay, so the EU AI Act itself, it officially entered into force August 1st, 2024. The goal is full applicability by August 2nd, 2026.
Right, 2 years.
But, and this is key, it's not just one big deadline way off in the future. It's actually a very carefully phased rollout. There are critical milestones, some of which are already passed or coming up very quickly.
Okay, so these aren't just dates to circle on a calendar. They're real deadlines with real consequences.
Exactly. For instance, since February 2nd, 2025.
Oh.
So that's already happened. Certain AI uses are just outright prohibited, and some basic AI literacy duties kicked in.
Okay.
Then, from August 2nd, 2025, which, as you say, is practically upon us, that's when obligations for general-purpose AI providers really start. Things like new transparency rules, copyright requirements, they become active then.
Got it. And then looking further ahead.
Fast forward to August 2nd, 2026, that's when the rest of the Act becomes fully applicable. And crucially, that's when the European Commission gets its power to issue those potentially huge fines for GPAI breaches starts then.
Okay, so that's the big stick date.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And one more date for legacy models, the ones already on the market before August 2nd, 2025. They would have a bit more time until August 2nd, 2027 to get compliant.
Right, a grace period. Makes sense. Now, you mentioned the EU's approach is risk-based.
Yes, and that's really interesting. Instead of a sort of one-size-fits-all rule, they've tried to tailor the regulations based on the actual potential harm an AI system could cause. It's tiered.
Tiered how? What's the top tier?
Top tier is unacceptable risk. These are AI practices just flat-out banned. Think things like government social scoring or untargeted scraping of facial images to build databases or using AI to detect emotions in workplaces or schools. Basically stuff deemed too invasive or dangerous.
Okay, so those are just off the table completely.
Correct.
So what about AI that isn't banned outright but still carries, significant risk?
That's the high-risk category. And these systems face really strict requirements. We're talking high data quality standards, very thorough documentation, traceability, mandatory human oversight, robustness, the works.
And what kind of AI falls into that high-risk bucket?
Think AI used in critical infrastructure, energy grids, transport, or medical devices, even things like recruitment software or credit scoring systems, stuff that could seriously impact someone's safety, livelihood, or fundamental rights.
Right, makes sense. Okay, so unacceptable high risk. What's next?
Below high risk, you have limited risk systems.
Yeah.
Here, the main thing is transparency.
Transparency, meaning?
Meaning, you need to make it clear when someone's interacting with AI. So a chatbot has to say it's a chatbot. AI-generated content, like deepfakes, needs to be labeled. It's about ensuring people aren't misled.
Gotcha. And the lowest tier?
That's minimal risk. And these systems are, for the most part, unregulated. The idea is to let innovation happen where the risks are really negligible.
Okay, that tiered approach seems logical. So let's zoom in now on the code of practice itself, this voluntary document, right? Published mid-2025.
Exactly. Published July 10th, 2025. It's a voluntary general-purpose AI code of practice put together by 13 independent experts after a lot of stakeholder discussion.
And what's its main job, this voluntary code?
Well, its core purpose is to give GPAI model providers a practical way to show they're complying with certain key parts of the AI Act, specifically Articles 53 and 55. It acts as a sort of bridge until the official harmonized EU standards are fully developed.
So signing up helps companies.
How?
It basically streamlines things. If you follow the code, your interactions with the central AI office should be smoother. It reduces the administrative headache compared to, say, having to submit completely custom documentation every time to prove you're compliant.
Okay, and this sounds important. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card, right? It's not a legal safe harbor.
Absolutely crucial point. It is not a legal safe harbor. It doesn't automatically mean you are compliant or give you immunity. It's more like a recognized, structured method to demonstrate your compliance efforts. A guide, not a shield.
Right, a way to show you're playing by the expected rules.
Precisely. And to help with that, the Commission also put out some guidelines to clarify what counts as GPAI, and importantly, a mandatory template for summarizing your training data publicly.
A mandatory template. Okay, that sounds pretty concrete.
It is. It's a big step towards more transparency about what's actually gone into training these models.
Interesting. And who's actually signed up to this code so far? Any big names? Oh, yeah. Quite a few heavy hitters. OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Mistral, ServiceNow, Anthropic, IBM, Amazon, Cohere. They're all signatories.
Anyone holding out?
Well, interestingly, XAI only signed the chapter on safety and security.
Oh. So what does that mean for them?
It means they'll need to prove their compliance on transparency and copyright using other methods, which might be, more work or less straightforward than just following the code structure for those parts.
That decision kind of hints at some underlying debate, doesn't it? Is everyone happy with this code?
Not universally, no. There has been some pushback. Groups like CCIA Europe, for example, have raised concerns about the burden, the timing, questioning if it's all proportionate, especially parts of the safety chapter. They worry it might stifle innovation.
Yeah, I can see that tension. Is it too much red tape, or is it just the necessary price for building trust and safety in AI?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The EU perspective is clear. These guardrails are vital for public trust and preventing harm, which ultimately helps AI adoption. But the industry concern about balancing compliance speed with innovation speed is also very real.
So the code is trying to sort of thread that needle, provide a path.
That's the idea, a clear, though voluntary pathway forward in the interim.
Okay, so let's define terms. What exactly counts as general purpose AI or GPAI under this whole thing?
Good question. Basically, it's an AI model that shows significant generality, meaning it's pretty versatile, can be plugged into lots of different downstream systems, and adapted for various tasks.
Is there a technical threshold?
There's a practical indicator the Commission suggests.
Yeah.
Training compute. If a model took more than 1023 FLOPs to train, that's a massive amount of computation, combined with having certain advanced capabilities like complex language understanding or generation, it's likely considered GPAI.
10 to the 23. Wow. Okay. And then there's an even higher level, GPAI with systemic risk.
That's right. This is for the real frontier models. A model is presumed to have systemic risk if its training compute hits 125 FLOPs. So 100 times more compute than the GPI indicator, or if the Commission designates it because it has a similarly huge impact.
And if you build one of those,
then you have a strict notification duty. You must tell the Commission immediately, well, within 2 weeks anyway, when you hit that threshold, or even when you anticipate hitting it. It's a mandatory heads up.
No wiggle room there. What about open source AI? Is there any kind of break for them?
There is an open source exception, yes. It applies to some of the technical documentation duties in Article 53. If you release your model under a free and open source license, and you make the weights, architecture, and usage info public, you might be exempt from those specific documentation requirements.
But there's a catch, I bet.
There's a big catch, too, actually. This exception does not apply if the model has systemic risk. And crucially, it does not get you off the hook for copyright compliance or potential product liability. Open source isn't a free pass on everything.
Got it. So pulling this together, this voluntary code seems like a useful roadmap for navigating the act. Helps reduce some uncertainty, maybe.
Exactly. It provides a recognized way to approach compliance, which is valuable. But, like we stress, understanding its limits, that it's not a legal shield, is absolutely key. It's about building a defensible, transparent approach.
Okay, let's get down to the brass tacks then. The code moves from principles to actual practical actions, doesn't it? Like documenting energy use, handling copyright. Let's break this down, starting with transparency.
Right. On transparency, providers need to be pretty meticulous. They have to use this specific model documentation form.
And what goes in that form?
A lot. Detailed specs of the model, characteristics of the training data used, what the model's intended for, and importantly, what it's not designed for the out-of-scope uses. Plus, the compute power consumed during training, and this is quite notable, the energy consumption.
Energy consumption, that's interesting. Why mandate that specifically?
Well, it signals a broader focus beyond just function. It forces consideration of the environmental footprint. And, looking ahead, it could potentially feed into future carbon pricing or green AI incentives. It makes sustainability part of the performance picture.
Makes sense. And this documentation isn't a one-off.
No, it has to be kept up to date.
Yeah.
And you need to be ready to share it with downstream developers who integrate your model and with the AI office if they ask, though there are provisions to protect legitimate trade secrets, of course.
What if you don't know the exact energy figure? Maybe for an older model.
Estimations are allowed in that case, but you have to be transparent about it. You need to disclose the method you use for the estimate and point out any gaps in your data. The key word is still transparency.
And supporting downstream users.
Yeah, that's important too. Providers need to give integrators good info on the model's capabilities, its limitations, how to integrate it safely, and there's a clear point about fine-tuning. If someone downstream significantly modifies your model, they effectively become the provider for that modified version, inheriting the responsibilities.
Right. Passing the baton responsibly. Okay, that covers transparency. Now let's tackle the big one, copyright compliance. Always a thorny issue with AI.
Indeed. The code requires providers to have a solid internal copyright policy. This needs to cover how they lawfully get training data, how they respect opt-outs, how they build safeguards into the model's outputs to try and prevent infringement, and how they handle complaints.
And respecting opt-outs, how specific does it get?
Very specific. It explicitly mentions respecting machine-readable opt-outs, like the standard robots.txt file websites use. If a site says don't crawl for AI training, you have to honor that when gathering web data. That's a big operational change for many.
Yeah, that sounds like it requires significant technical adjustments. What about summarizing the training data? You mentioned a mandatory template.
Yes, the mandatory template from the Commission. Providers must publish a summary of the content used for training. It needs to be detailed enough to actually help rights holders understand what might be in there. Think identifying major data sets used, listing top domain names that were scraped, that kind of thing.
Oh, for models trained on, the vastness of the internet over years, pulling that summary together sounds incredibly challenging.
It absolutely is, especially for older models where record keeping might not have been as rigorous, but it represents a fundamental shift. We're moving away from rights holders having to guess and sue towards providers having to proactively disclose and justify their data sources.
Yeah.
It really empowers rights holders.
And complaint handling.
Also required. You need designated contact points and clear procedures so rights holders can actually reach out, file a complaint about potential infringement, and get a response.
Okay. Transparency, copyright. What's the third pillar? Safety and security, right? Especially for those high compute systemic risk models.
Exactly. This chapter really zeroes in on those most powerful, potentially riskiest models. The obligations here are quite demanding.
Such as?
Providers need to conduct thorough model evaluations, including adversarial testing, often called red teaming, basically trying to break the model or find harmful capabilities before release. They need ongoing processes to assess and mitigate systemic risks post-deployment.
And reporting issues.
Yes, mandatory tracking and prompt reporting of any serious incidents to the AI office and relevant national authorities. Plus, ensuring state-of-the-art cybersecurity, not just for the model itself, but for the whole infrastructure it runs on. And again, those notification duties kick in if you hit the 1025 FLOP's compute threshold.
Okay, so taking all this in, what's the real so what for businesses? We're talking major changes, right? It sounds like AI governance is really moving out of the tech basement and into the boardroom.
That's the absolute bottom line. This fundamentally shifts AI governance from being just an IT or maybe a legal problem to being a core line of business responsibility. C-suite needs to be involved.
And for, say, the chief risk officer or the CFO, what are the concrete operational impacts?
Huge impacts. Think about disclosure and attestation. You now need repeatable evidence for things like training data origins, compute usage, energy consumption. So the CFO needs to find budget to actually build the systems to measure and assure this data, potentially aligning it with existing ESG reporting or internal controls. And they need to be ready for the AI office asking tough questions.
So it's not just reporting, it's funding the measurement infrastructure itself.
Precisely. In copyright compliance, that becomes a real cost center in the controllership function. You need budget for crawler controls, for that robots.txt compliance, potentially for licensing data sources, for filtering out illegal content, for running those complaint workflows.
And pushing it down the supply chain.
Right. Yes. Contracts with suppliers, data providers, cloud providers need to be updated to flow these responsibilities down. You need assurance they're compliant too.
And for companies working with those really big systemic risk models, what's the budget hit there?
Are you ready to see risk management in action? At Wheelhouse Advisors, we've launched a new YouTube channel dedicated to integrated risk management. You'll find quick explainers, insights from our IRM Navigator research reports, highlights from the Risk Journal, and conversations from the Risk Wheelhouse podcast. We're covering the topics that matter most to executives and risk leaders, from AI governance and cyber insurance to operational resilience and regulatory change. Every video is designed to help you anticipate risks, adapt with confidence, and build resilience in a digital-first world. In our first video, we explain how ISO 42001, the EU AI Act, and the NIST AI Risk Management Framework can work together as a unified playbook for AI risk. Subscribe today at youtube.com/@wheelhouseadv and get the latest insights delivered directly to you. That's youtube.com/@wheelhouseadv. Subscribe now and stay ahead of the risks that matter most.
They need to brace for significant spending on independent evaluations, those intensive red teaming exercises, setting up serious incident response teams and playbooks, and seriously hardening the cybersecurity around these critical AI assets. Coordinating those compute threshold notifications with cloud providers also needs careful planning and process.
Wow, okay. And if companies, well, if they get it wrong, the penalties we talked about earlier are
Extremely serious. We're talking maximum fines up to 35 million euros or 7% of global annual turnover, whichever is higher, for using prohibited AI or breaching certain other core obligations. That's GDPR level stuff. It could be existential for some businesses.
7% of global turnover.
Yeah. And other major breaches, like violating GPA obligations, can hit 15 million euros or 3%. Even just providing incorrect information to authorities could cost 7.5 million euros or 1%. These fines have real teeth.
And just to recap the timing on those fines, the GPAI rules themselves start August 2025, but the Commission's power to actually levy fines for GPAI breaches starts August 2026, right?
Correct. August 2nd, 2026 for the fines related to GPAI obligations. And remember, those legacy models have until August 2nd, 2027 to comply before facing fines.
So given how high the stakes are, financially and reputationally, businesses really can't just see this code as another compliance checkbox, can they?
Absolutely not. It's far beyond that. It demands a fundamental rethinking of operational strategy, especially for risk and finance leaders. It's pushing toward a much more proactive, integrated way of managing AI risk across the entire organization.
Right, that integrated approach. Let's talk about how to actually achieve that, because the code, the guidelines, that mandatory template, they're not just ideas anymore, are they? They're about creating auditable proof.
Exactly. It shifts the whole game from talking about AI principles to demonstrating auditable processes and artifacts. It makes providers accountable for managing risk throughout the AI lifecycle. You have to show your work.
And you mentioned integrated risk management, IRM, is the way to do this. How does that help structure things?
Yeah, IRM really provides the practical framework, the operating backbone, to weave all these new duties into how a company already manages risk. It connects the dots between enterprise risk, ERM, operational risk, ORM, technology risk, TRM, and governance risk and compliance, GRC.
Does it align with other standards people might already be using?
Yes, perfectly. It aligns very well with established frameworks like the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, which is widely respected globally, and also ISO 42001, the international standard specifically for AI management systems. So you're building on recognized best practices.
Can you give us a concrete example? How would IRM handle, say, that model documentation form requirement?
Sure. So within an IRM framework, that model documentation form isn't just some standalone document floating around. It gets tagged against core IRM objectives like assurance and compliance.
Okay.
Then it plugs into specific risk functions. It becomes an input for technology risk management, helping manage the AI model as a documented asset. It informs GRC processes, ensuring policies around model development and use are being followed. The end result is you build this central, connected register of your models, their compute logs, their energy use, making everything much easier to track, audit, and manage.
That makes a lot of sense, connecting it into existing structures. So for the CFOs, the CROs listening right now, feeling maybe a bit overwhelmed, what's a practical starting roadmap? What should they be doing like now?
Okay, let's break it down. In the first 30 days, urgently start inventorying your AI models. Which ones touch the EU market? Identify potential GPAI models and flag any candidates for systemic risk. At the same time, start deploying ways to measure compute and energy use, or at least document your estimation methods clearly as the code allows. And if you are working on frontier models, get that systemic risk documentation, evaluation planning, and notification process sketched out now.
Okay, that's a busy first month. What about the next 3 months, the first quarter?
In the next 90 days, the focus shifts to governance and policy. Stand up a cross-functional AI risk council. Get finance, tech risk, legal, product ops leaders in the room together. Give them ownership of overseeing the model documentation form process and that public training data summary. Critically, publish your internal copyright policy, get your web crawlers configured to respect those machine-readable opt-outs like robots.txt, and set up your intake mechanism for rights holder complaints.
Right, getting the core policies and processes in place. And looking further out, 6 months, a year.
Over the next 6 to 12 months, it's about embedding this. Integrate the model documentation and the training data summaries into your regular internal audit cycles and your board reporting packs. Start formally aligning your internal IRM controls with the NIST AI RMF structure, and maybe begin looking at ISO 42001 readiness to show maturity.
And beyond the first year, say 12 to 24 months out.
Then you expand outwards. Start including supplier adherence to these standards in your third-party risk management reviews. And crucially, update your vendor contracts, cloud providers, data suppliers, etc., to explicitly flow down these transparency and copyright requirements. Make sure your partners are aligned.
That's a really clear step-by-step approach. Excellent. So if we had to boil this entire deep dive down to just a few key takeaways, the absolute must-do actions, what would they be?
Okay, 4 key recommendations. 1, fund the basics now. Seriously, allocate budget for model inventories, getting those model documentation forms filled out, setting up compute and energy metering, and establishing that public summary process for training data. Don't wait.
Okay. Number 2.
2, institutionalize copyright compliance. Make respecting machine-readable opt-outs standard practice. Set up clear channels for rights holders to contact you. Implement output filtering. Make sure someone is clearly accountable for this across the organization.
Got it. 3rd.
3, plan for systemic risk, even if you think it doesn't apply to you today. Design your model evaluation processes, your adversarial testing plans, your incident response runbooks now, so they're ready to scale if your models or models you rely on from suppliers cross those compute thresholds later. Be prepared.
Makes sense. And the final recommendation.
4, adopt IRM as your operating backbone. Don't treat this as a separate silo. Map these new code requirements directly onto your existing integrated risk management objectives. Performance, resilience, assurance, compliance. Integrate them properly across ERM, ORM, TRM, and GRC. Make it part of how you already manage risk.
Fantastic. So there we have it. We've really journeyed through the weeds of the EU AI Act and its code of practice today, from the rollout phases and risk levels right down to the nitty-gritty of transparency, copyright, and safety rules.
Yeah, and the key point is, this isn't just more regulation for the sake of it. It's driving a fundamental shift. It demands that integrated risk management approach, and yes, some significant operational and financial adjustments.
But getting ahead of the curve, adopting that proactive IRM approach early, that could actually turn these compliance hurdles into a real strategic advantage, couldn't it? Building trust, making operations more efficient.
I definitely think so. And, this whole EU effort really throws a spotlight on a massive global tension, doesn't it? How do we keep AI innovation moving at this incredible pace while also making sure it's safe, accountable, and stays within ethical lines?
That's the core challenge.
The EU has drawn its line in the sand here. And you can bet the ripples from this will influence AI development everywhere. What does that mean for companies trying to navigate different rules in different countries? How will it shape the design of AI systems themselves going forward? Lots to think about.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully this deep dive has given you, our listeners, the knowledge you need to start having those vital conversations inside your own organizations. We really encourage you to think about your own AI practices and how these insights might shape your strategy.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks so much for joining us for the deep dive today. We'll catch you next time for another essential exploration.
That wraps up another episode of the Risk Wheelhouse. Thank you for spending time with us at Wheelhouse Advisors today. We hope you found the conversation insightful and actionable for your organization's risk strategies. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. If you're looking for more in-depth analysis and thought leadership on risk technology, be sure to visit the Risk Tech Journal at therisktechjournal.com. It's your go-to source for comprehensive articles, expert interviews, and the latest trends shaping the industry. Subscribe today to stay informed. For any inquiries or feedback, please contact us directly at info@wheelhouseadvisors.com, or feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and x.com and share your thoughts or suggestions for future topics. Visit wheelhouseadvisors.com for more information and resources. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, navigate wisely.